Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, I hesitated a little before we hit record on this one.
Oh, yeah.
We usually tackle things that make you smarter, economics, history, tech trends. But today, we are opening a file that feels, well, it feels like a diagnosis.
I know you.
We're looking at a collection of stories titled The Kafka Parables That Kafka Burned by Max and Claude. And just looking through these notes, I'm realizing this isn't just literature. It's a mirror for, every anxiety I've had in the last 5 years.
It's definitely heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But I think you're right to call it a diagnosis. Usually when people say something is Kafka-esque, they just mean it's complicated.
I spent 3 hours at the DMV.
Exactly. But these parables, they go so much deeper. They are about the architecture of absurdity, how the systems we build, the laws we follow, even our own brains create these traps that are, technically speaking, impossible to escape.
Impossible to escape, but also traps that we build ourselves. That's the part that gets me. It's that feeling of waiting for a package that requires a signature, but you can't leave the house because you might miss it. You're trapped by your own expectation.
That is a perfect example. It's the paradox of the loop. And the mission for this deep dive is to explore that loop. We're going to look at infinite bureaucracy, sure, but also the paradox of trying too hard.
Yeah.
And what happens when you get exactly what you asked for and it ruins you.
Fun stuff, right? But seriously, if you've ever felt like you're constantly preparing for a life that hasn't quite started yet, like you're in the waiting room of your own existence, this deep dive is for you. And we have to start with the story that I think it perfectly encapsulates this. It's called The Appointment.
This is the one with the letter. It's a masterclass in minimalism.
So imagine this. A man receives a letter. It's on thick, creamy, official paper. Beautiful, precise handwriting.
It looks important.
It commands respect immediately. And it says, just one sentence, you have an appointment, do not be late.
That's it.
That's it. No time, no place, no sender.
Which is the ultimate bureaucratic nightmare. It demands total compliance, but refuses to give you the coordinates to comply. It's a command that disables you.
Right. And his friends, who are like the rational world, they tell him, look, it's a prank or a mistake, throw it away.
Sure.
But he can't because the letter uses his full legal name, even the middle name he never uses. So he knows on some level it's real. And this is where the spiral starts. It's not just that he's worried. He starts re-engineering his entire life around this vague possibility.
He creates a vacuum. He starts canceling commitments because he thinks, well, what if the appointment is Tuesday at 2? I can't be at lunch.
Exactly. It gets profound fast. He starts sleeping in his clothes so he's ready to leave at a moment's notice. He packs a bag with every possible document.
Birth certificate, tax returns.
Everything. His life just contracts around this waiting. He stops seeing friends. He stops working. He wastes his entire existence preparing for an event that has no date.
It's anticipatory anxiety taken to the absolute extreme. But think about how many people do this metaphorically. I can't start writing my book until I have the perfect death.
Oh, yeah. I can't start dating until I lose 10 pounds.
We pause our actual lives to prepare for a theoretical life.
And in the story, this goes on for decades. Until he's an old man on his deathbed, and then finally a second letter arrives.
Oh, no.
Same paper, same seal. He opens it with his shaking hands, and it says, you have missed your appointment. It was yesterday.
That ending is so cruel. But it's necessary for the point.
It crushed me. But here's the twist that I think makes this a real deep dive moment.
Yeah.
The story ends with a neighbor finding the body.
Okay.
The neighbor picks up the letter, assumes the old man was, demented and writing notes to himself and throws it in the trash. But the narrator notes he misses one tiny detail. The seal on the letter is real wax.
See, that changes the whole interpretation. If the seal is real, the appointment was real.
Right.
But here's the insight from the commentary. The appointment was impossible to attend because it lacked coordinates. It could only be missed. The trap wasn't the appointment itself. The trap was the waiting.
So by waiting for the appointment, he ensured he would miss it.
In a way, yes. The commentary suggests that the appointment was the life we sacrificed. We spend so much time getting ready to live that we miss the actual appointment, which is just being alive.
Yeah.
The letter was brutally honest. You missed it because you were too busy waiting for it.
That sets a pretty bleak but clarifying tone. Now, you'd think the solution to waiting is action, right?
Sure.
But the next story, The Trial That Never Began, suggests that doing something can be just as dangerous if the system is rigged.
This feels like a companion piece to The Appointment, but for anyone who suffers from imposter syndrome.
Oh, totally. So a man is arrested, but And here's the catch. He isn't charged with anything. He's free to move around, not in a cell, but he is marked in the ledger as arrested.
It's a procedural nightmare. He's in legal purgatory.
And when he hires a lawyer, the lawyer tells him, we can't see the charges until the preliminary investigation is complete. And that could take decades. But then the lawyer says something that makes my brain hurt. He explains this system is designed to protect the innocent.
That's the twisted logic you recognize immediately. The argument is, if we waited for evidence to arrest people, the guilty might escape. So for safety, we arrest everyone first and investigate later.
Which is insane. So the man is stuck. He has to avoid giving them new reasons to arrest him while he's already arrested. He has to act innocent of a crime he doesn't even know.
It creates a state of hypervigilance. He internalizes the police state. He becomes his own jailer. And I think this resonates so much today because of how public our lives are. We feel like we are one bad tweet away from social ruin. We walk around feeling pre-arrested.
Pre-arrested. Wow, that's a terrifyingly accurate phrase. And the outcome in the story is just as bleak. After years, he gets a letter. Case closed, insufficient evidence, he's free.
But he's ruined.
It's completely old, no job, who hires an arrested man, no friends. And he says something at the end that really stuck with me. Arrest without charges is worse than conviction.
I agree with him. Because conviction offers closure. It says, you did X, the punishment is Y. You move on. But an open investigation, it's infinite. It eats your mind.
It really challenges that idea that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
Precisely. It's a critique of uncertainty as a weapon of control.
Okay, so we've covered the trap of waiting and the trap of passive guilt, but what about when we actually try to take control? When we put in the effort?
Yes.
This brings us to a section I'm calling the paradox of effort. And there's a story here called The Door That Opens Inward that is, honestly, it's almost a dark comedy.
It is. It highlights how we are so often the source of our own obstacles.
So there's a man who finds a massive door. He wants to go through. He pushes, doesn't budge. He pushes harder. Eventually, a crowd gathers to help him.
Right.
They turn pushing into a science. They have schools of pushing. They write books about the proper stance.
They build an entire culture and economy around it. It becomes their identity. We are the pushers.
Exactly. And doing anything else like pulling is considered heresy. We have always pushed, therefore, pushing is the way.
We should pause here because this is a perfect illustration of the sunk cost fallacy.
Write that down for us.
It's the idea that because you've already invested so much time or money into something, you have to keep going. Otherwise, the previous investment was wasted.
So because they spent 10 years pushing, they feel they must keep pushing.
Otherwise, the last 10 years were for nothing. So they waste 10 more.
And then decades later, this exhausted young guy just gives up. He stops pushing and leans against the door to catch his breath. And what happens?
Click.
The door swings open. It opened inward the whole time. The force of their pushing was the very thing keeping it sealed shut.
I love this story. It connects so well to the Taoist concept of Wu Wei. Wu Wei. Yeah, it translates roughly to non-action or effortless action.
Right.
It doesn't mean being lazy. It means not forcing things against their nature. We often think the answer is to try harder, add more pressure. But sometimes the obstacle is our own tension. We're jamming the mechanism with our own desperation.
The tragedy, though, is the reaction of the old man who started it all. He walks through the open door, finds a second door,
Oh, no.
and immediately starts pushing on it. He refuses to learn the lesson. He dies pushing.
Because his ego is tied to the struggle. Admitting the door opens inward means his life's work was a mistake. Most people would rather die pushing.
Speaking of things that are too painful to admit, let's look at the law that applies only when broken. A man finds out there is a personal law, Law P77291, that applies only to him, but he isn't allowed to know what it is.
This one is tricky. The official tells him that if he knew the law, he would obey it artificially. The law requires natural obedience.
Which puts him in a complete bind. He becomes paralyzed. He's afraid of accidentally breaking this secret law, and eventually they show up to arrest him. And why?
Let me guess. For being too cautious.
Exactly. The law required him to live fully and take risks.
That is the ultimate catch-22.
And his punishment is knowledge. They show him the law. Now he knows. But the official tells him, now that you know the law, you can never obey it.
Because if you act courageous just to follow the rule, you aren't being authentically courageous, you're just following orders.
This is the authenticity trap. We see this all the time. Just be yourself, be spontaneous. But the moment you try to be yourself, you're performing. You're acting out a role.
You can't be spontaneous on command. It's why you can't tickle yourself. The anticipation ruins the reaction.
It's maddening. Let's move to something that feels a bit more like our daily grind, the bureaucracy. There's a short one here that made me laugh out loud, then want to throw my laptop across the room.
Oh, I know which one.
The form that required its own completion.
The recursive paperwork loop.
So a man gets a form. The instructions say this form must be completed in full before you may begin filling it out.
Which is just...
Right. But the kicker is question 7. It asks for a reference number. He finds out the reference number is only issued after you submit the form.
But you can't submit the form without the number.
Exactly. Years later, he gets a letter approving a submission he never made, giving him the number. He's thrilled. He goes to fill out the renewal form. He puts in the number, and it's rejected.
Lay guess.
Because that number is for initial submissions only. The renewal requires a renewal number, which you only get after renewing.
It's the snake eating its own tail. It reminds me of entry-level job postings that require 5 years of experience. You can't get the job without experience, and you can't get experience without the job.
The system protects itself from participation. The key is inside the room.
And sometimes the system creates the reality it's supposed to serve. That brings us to the bridge between two places that don't exist.
Parable 42, I love this one.
It's a fascinating one about infrastructure. Engineers build a massive bridge to connect point A and point B. But they realize point A and B don't actually exist. They are just arbitrary spots in a field.
But they've already spent the budget, so they finish it. And then, just to make it worse, the river changes course.
So now it spans dry land.
Yes. It connects nothing to nothing over nothing.
And yet they don't tear it down.
No. They pass laws mandating people use the bridge, and people do. Settlements grow up around the ends, and history records it as a vital connection that responded to transportation needs.
This is a metaphysical version of a concept in urban planning called induced demand.
Induced demand.
Basically, if you build more lanes on a highway to fix traffic, more people start driving because there are more lanes, and the traffic stays just as bad. The supply creates the demand.
So the bridge created the need it now fulfills.
Exactly. We often think solutions follow problems. But in large systems, solutions often manufacture the problems they claim to solve.
It makes you question how much of our reality is just backfilled justification for things we built by mistake. Which leads us perfectly into the next section. Reality, maps, and memory. Because there's a parable called the map more accurate than the territory.
This is a classic philosophical problem, but they give it teeth.
The cartographers create a living map that updates in real time. But it becomes so authoritative that construction crews start fixing the city to match the errors on the map.
Oh, wow.
If the map shows a straight street and the real street is crooked, they bulldoze the street to straighten it.
The representation becomes more real than the reality. We see this with social media. The profile, the map of the person becomes the thing we interact with, and people start editing their actual lives to fit the profile. The map is dictating the territory.
And eventually in the story, they release a blank map, and people just project whatever they want onto it. The text says, accuracy is impossible because it has already been achieved and surpassed.
The territory disappears into the map, the ultimate victory of the symbol over the substance.
And it's not just space, it's time, too. Parable 19 is about a man with a false memory. He remembers an event vividly that never happened, but he remembers it so hard that he eventually finds a photograph of it, a photo that shouldn't exist.
And his friend, who wasn't there, starts remembering it too.
Right. The false memory becomes more solid than the real past. It's like the intensity of the remembering rewrites history.
It suggests that the past isn't a fixed archive. It's a collaborative project. If we all agree on the lie becomes the truth. It's terrifying, but also oddly empowering. We are writing the story as we go.
Speaking of knowing things, my favorite character in this entire stack is the expert in Parable 40, the expert who knew less each day.
I relate to this one painfully well. It's the academic's curse.
He realizes that every answer generates 3 new questions. So functionally, his ignorance is growing faster than his knowledge.
It's simple geometry. Think of knowledge as a circle of light in a dark room. As the circle grows, the circumference touches more darkness. The more you know, the more contact you have with the unknown.
He ends up advising a young scholar to quit school while he still knows something, and his final work is a paper titled, What I Don't Know.
And it's just a blank page.
A blank page.
Because he doesn't even know what he doesn't know anymore. That blank page is the only honest thing he ever wrote. It's the wisdom of humility.
We're heading toward the end, and we have to talk about the emotional climax of this collection. It's Parable 3, The messenger who forgot the message.
This one is heartbreaking. It's beautiful, but it hurts.
It starts with a dying emperor. He whispers a message of vital importance into a messenger's ear, and the story explicitly states, "This message is for you, the listener."
The stakes couldn't be higher. It implies there's an answer, a meaning to it all.
But the palace is infinite. The messenger spends decades just trying to get out of the inner courtyard. He ages, and as he navigates the obstacles, the specific words of the message start to fade. Then the meaning blurs.
Entropy attacks the signal. The distance erodes the truth.
By the time he finally reaches your door, if he reaches it, he's an old man. You open the door, you ask for the message, and he realizes he has forgotten it entirely.
He remembers the urgency, but not the content.
Exactly. He knows there was a message, and he knows it was important, but he has nothing to deliver. And the story ends with you closing the door. The transmission failed.
But wait. The commentary on this one has a beautiful reframing that saves us from despair. Perhaps the message is the failure. Perhaps the message is simply, there was a message, it was for you, and it is lost.
That we have to live with the importance and the loss at the same time.
Yes. We all have this sense there's some ultimate meaning we're supposed to receive from religion, philosophy, our parents. But by the time it reaches us, it's garbled, it's forgotten. We're left holding the empty envelope. Maturity is accepting the envelope as empty, but still honoring the journey the messenger took.
That is a lot to process. It ties back to everything. The waiting, the pushing, the forms, it's all structure without content.
It brings to mind Parable 7, the burrow, the creature who builds the perfect underground fortress for safety. But he spends all his time obsessing over the flaws, listening for enemies.
He never actually lives in the burrow, he just works on it.
He dies defending a home he never inhabited.
So, if we look at this whole stack, what's the synthesis here? What are we supposed to do with this besides have an existential crisis?
I think the thread connecting the appointment, the bridge, and the burrow is this.
Yeah.
We sacrifice our actual lives in preparation for a life that's supposed to happen later. We treat the present moment as a staging ground for a future that, by definition, never arrives.
Because when it arrives, it's just the present again. We're insuring ourselves against nothing.
Exactly. There's actually a parable about that, number 36, insurance against nothing. The man buys a policy that covers events that do not occur.
And the premiums go up?
Because the number of things that don't happen is infinite.
So he goes broke, paying for protection against non-events.
We spend our emotional currency doing exactly that, worrying about things that won't happen, preparing for judgments that won't be passed.
So the provocative thought to leave you with today is this. Look at your life right now. Where are you pushing against a door that might open inward? Where are you waiting for an appointment permission, validation, the right time that was actually scheduled for yesterday?
And if the messenger showed up at your door with nothing to say, could you be okay with that? Could you accept that the silence is the message and that it's up to you to fill it?
That is the question. Thank you for taking this deep dive into the absurd with us. Hopefully we helped you find a way out of the quarter, or at least made the waiting a little more interesting.
Until next time.
See you then.